My name's Martin Atkins. I started playing drums when I was 9. Um, was playing 7 nights a week and Sunday afternoons by the time I was 11 or 12. Um, been in a bunch of bands: Public Image Limited, Killing Joke, Ministry. I worked with Nine Inch Nails. I started a band called Pigface. I started my own record label 20 years ago to try and take hold of the whole process. I think I was tired of having some of my ideas watered down and some of my other ideas that were just okay hyped up. And so I wanted to have control over that whole process. I have a publishing company now, a recording studio. I teach at Columbia in Chicago. I wrote a book called Tour Smart. I DJ, and I have 4 boys. I'd see a couple of things. I see an increasing entrenchment with people who have been fighting to get things back to the way they were, and that seems to me to be completely over, and something to kind of document, like you would go to an art gallery and look at a painting. We can look and see what those people are doing. The genie is out of the bottle; it's not going back in. But then it's just occurred to me quite recently, because I grew up in the punk rock revolution, 76 to 78 in England, where the manager of the Sex Pistols, Malcolm McLaren, took a band called Bow Wow Wow with a 11-year-old Vietnamese singer called Annabelle Lin, I think, and created a song called C30, C60, C90 Go, which was encouraging kids to take a blank cassette tape and record music. And the song was banned and instantly became a hit. So there's all kinds of issues in there of marketing, but just being around for long enough to see that unfold and look at the logo that was created, home taping is killing music. And I was looking at my PowerPoint yesterday, and it says at the bottom, and it's illegal. There's that threat, the pre-echo of that. It just seems to me that, hey, things are always changing. Get used to it. Just dismiss that and get on with what it is you're supposed to be getting on with. Lose the fear. Lose the discussion about, well, is digital better than analog? Analog is great for drums. Digital is great for working with a vocalist and editing out all the pops and the sibilance and the mistakes and the out of tuneness. You know, to get on with making music that touches people, and that's what will help you. Fighting to shut other avenues down, it isn't going to help, and it feels like it's not the direction that many artists could be going to get the most out of their music or out of their lives. So I've started to become interested in this. There's a very small organisation in Europe. It's a small school of rabid entrepreneurs teaching kids in the entrepreneurial world, and it's called the Chaos Pilots. And I just thought, that's a that's a great name. They're trying to teach kids to, yeah, of course it's chaos. Where's my surfboard? You know. And I spoke to one of the guys. Um, he picked up his cell phone. I just landed in Vietnam. I'm like, wow, I didn't mean to disturb you on your holiday, on your vacation. He said, no, I've just landed with 12 students. I'm like, well, what are you doing? He's like, we don't know yet. We're going to do something. I'm like, okay. It's that kind of movement forwards that's exciting. So I'm just starting to keep tabs on where all of this is going. I don't know. Um, I think that there are mediocre musicians who are making a living at it, maybe because of 10 other things. And certainly there are much better drummers than me making a worse living at drumming. I mean, when I joined Killing Joke, the band was in disarray. I started to look at some merchandising solutions and some touring options immediately. So I brought some other things to the table. Um, and I think it's an increasing climate of how many things can you bring to the table. In addition to, you know, you've got to be good. You can't you can't be rubbish. But you own a vehicle and you can do the books. You're still rubbish, and the band's going to dissolve because you might be able to get more people to come to a show to see the fact that you're rubbish, and then you won't get them to come out again. But given that you have to be of a certain standard, I think that the acquisition of 5 or 6 or 10 other skills in addition to being pretty damn good might get you further than being 15% better on your instrument, you know. Um, and having those other skills might get you the brain space, the financial space, and the time to actually become better at your instrument, you know. Um, I've worked with some carpenters who join 4 crossbeams with weird angled cuts and beams coming from all over the place, and you look, and all of the cuts are perfect, and you have to stand back and applaud and say, "Well, that's poetry," you know. So it's an interesting time. I think the role, everyone's roles are in flux. But once again, 1970 something, when the drum machine was invented, at least when I heard about a drum machine, there have always been challenges. I don't think the drum machine threatened the art of good drumming, threatened the art of bad drumming. The bar is continually getting raised. But that's a question that catches me at a time when I'm thinking about that stuff. For somebody who does 8 shows a week, as I used to, maybe 6 of those shows, I was performing cover songs early on. But I was practicing my craft, and I was meeting people, and I was getting blisters and messing around with my drums and destroying them and finding different sticks, and you know I think that any level of activity is good, but the idea of what is a professional anything is changing. I think it becomes more of a I think you have to be strategic about the things that you want to do. So if a band is looking for a recording deal with a soap powder company, you probably don't want to approach them with songs, Impeach Bush, The Country's Going Down the Drain, bum, 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 bum. And I think in general you'd need to be very careful about any statement you'd want to make other than, "I love you when your clothes smell clean." We know our love is crazy like we're 2 socks in the tumble dryer. You know, but by understanding the market and working within it, just like the person who can't practice for an extra hour a day because they have to acquire some other skills, and that gets them the time and the space to be able to get better at their instrument eventually. I think if a band is smart, they can leverage, gouge, manipulate, create the space for themselves to do the obscure 19 tuba symphony in a church as their fourth album when people care. You can't start off with 19 tubas in a church unless you approach a tuba manufacturer and get the tie-in with the laundry detergent. You just can't do exactly what you want immediately, and it boggles my mind that some people think that you could do that in any field at any time. I feel like there's always that noise over there. It's the guy from Napster who's a criminal. No, he isn't. He's a hero. You know, he understood. He took a risk. You can admire that from an entrepreneurial standpoint. But whether it's radio or MySpace or whatever deals are being done to give away your music with acne wash with 10 free downloads. I saw that yesterday. Or buy this telephone and you'll get 100 free songs. Nobody sees any money from that. I've seen the other side of that, which I've been solicited as a record label owner to give a complete and total sign-off on all rights for 10 songs before they would even be considered to be used for the free giveaway with the music. If you want this promotional opportunity, we're not going to pay you. In fact, you should be paying us, and that will be next, you know. But I think you just have to look at that stuff as noise, and concentrate on the things that I think really matter. The packaging, the use of brain power to reach out to people. In my lecture yesterday, I had some examples of amazing packaging. Led Zeppelin 3 is an album that was released in 1973, I think. I just paid $75 for the reissue on heavyweight virgin German vinyl, you know, which I didn't need. I wanted the packaging. So maybe there was an argument in 1973 that this packaging is costing too much. It's crazy. The wheel goes round. This is costing a fortune. But 30 years later, 35 years later, that album is still selling. The metal box from Public Image Limited, the first album I played on, is still being held up as an example because of the packaging. So, as an entrepreneur, I look at what people can do, give away some songs, but they can't give away the packaging. And if an artist is prepared to communicate directly with their fans, with written words, with more tangible goods, I think that creates a revenue stream for the artist and also creates interest in some of the other questionable revenue streams that may or may not generate money, but would generate excitement, and then they can generate better attended shows, more t-shirt sales, better concert performance fees, and feed that loop. And in an era of dynamic ticket pricing, I think that if you have activity with any product, you know, even if you're not being paid, you will find people who want the handmade, in a carved box, limited edition, something or other for $500. And depending on the size of your fan base, 10 people buying the hand-carved $500 box is $5,000. It would take an awful lot of digital downloads or regular discounted CD in a jewel case, shrink-wrapped album sales to get to $5,000. It's 10 people instead of 5 or 700. So they're just different paths.
So as the world moves towards online music, you're saying that there is a possibility of differentiating yourself as a musician, as a band, through these antithetical propositions.
Well, it's any time I see 5,000 people going that way, I've got to say to myself, okay, well, what's over here? It's all digital download and convenient and really transient. Okay, here's my new album on an 8-track cartridge. Deal with it. And maybe that will generate some stories of, maybe there are 5 fans of Pigface who are like, oh my God, what an a-hole. I want this new album. It's on 8, and we'd release it on 8-track 2 months before it comes out anywhere else. So now people are on eBay trying to find an 8-track player. And maybe there's some stories about that. And maybe some people are upset. And I don't know. You just have to... One of my marketing philosophies has become do the opposite. You're supposed to submit through Sonic bids or however you're told to submit something. Fantastic. Here's the guy in the chicken suit bringing my demo to you. Oh, we were supposed to submit through Sonic bids? Sorry, I didn't get that memo. Here's the guy in the chicken suit. Well, you don't. I think that an empty venue is the most persuasive tool. And anybody who desperately wants people to hear their music and watch them jump up and down or practice their twirl with the guitar and it doesn't come unplugged and do all the things you do to create a cool show, if you're performing in front of nobody, people go in 2 directions. They just blame everybody and hide in a shell and switch management, or they get to grips with what they know they can do to change their situation. And the good news is once you go down the road of action and positive thought, it's exponential. Ideas create more ideas. Bickering and blaming is just a bubbling stew that is so unattractive. Um, you know, any band that thinks anybody's listening when they start to complain, it's so old and tired. Oh, a band complaining. Wow. Is it the label, the manager, the press, the world, the producer, the engineer, your mom and dad, everybody in the band, your girlfriend? Who is it? Oh, it's all of them. Okay. But I think when bands unlock that side of their brain, it's the same side of their brain, really. I think their music can get better because they're starting to look and go, there's 50 people here, how can we get 100 people here? And then they'll look at a song and go, some of this is good and some of it's crap. What makes it good? What makes it crap? Let's do more of the good stuff and less of the crap. And then you make that effort to make a song better, more immediate, have more impact, whatever it is. And maybe people hang around longer and you see 10 more t-shirt sales if you're paying attention. And the results are all there. And bands don't need anything. If bands would just put the blinkers on and get on with it. Somebody asked last night, where can I raise the investment to do a tour? I'm like, stop. You don't need any investment unless you're in a bus and hotels. You need to be in a van or somebody's car, and you go out for a few days. You don't need an investor. Um, I think the more bands do that, they'll discover all of the things that they need, and alliances and friendships, and the opposite of that. That they'll find rivalries that fuel them, you know, and ways to really step up their game. There's nothing like two good bands playing the same evening, because everybody steps their game up, and it's that I love that stuff. I wrote a book, and I go around the country telling people as much as I can, and illustrating to them, look, this isn't a theory. I showed a band from Seattle, Ugly Head, in the car park of a venue in Baton Rouge last night. Here's the map, with a line from Minneapolis to Texas. Here are all the major markets. Don't go west of the line. And they saw it, and that's a tool. And the more people that see that, the more people get it. And that's all I can do, is try and get that message out there, and then have that spread. It's very simple stuff. And I think once people get it, they start to get it, and they can put ideas back into the pot and help other people get it.
So all music is local until it isn't.
Right. Yeah. And there's this one idea. There are some crazy ideas in the music business. What's that phrase? Don't give up your day job. And I think when I was young, to me, the yardstick was whether you had if you had a day job, you mustn't be very good. If music was all you did, then that you were a professional. And that idea works, unless you just don't have a day job. The fact that you don't have a day job doesn't mean that you're a successful professional musician. You might be heading into debt and just subsisting. The idea that you can't have another job because you're so busy, that's different. And some bands will say to me, well, we're going to tour for like 5 weeks, so we'll give up our jobs. I'm like, don't give up your jobs. That's stability. When you want to do 3 new crazy t-shirt designs, somebody needs some money. Keep your jobs. And I like to put a twist on it, that it isn't just theory and ideas. I'm like, you can go and play Friday night, Saturday, further away, Sunday, and go as far away on Sunday as you can, so you can drive back just in time to fall asleep at your job on Monday morning. And you have to push it. I mean, that's what I did when I was an apprentice electronic technician, and I was falling asleep at work. And they called me in for a meeting to talk about the fact that I was falling asleep because I was playing every night. And I fell asleep during the meeting where they were telling me I was falling asleep. And I had to make a choice. And I think that's a good idea, to push things to that point where it's like, all right, I'm not being 100% fair to my employers, and I'm not, and the fact that I'm working during the day now is starting to affect the gigs that I'm doing at night. And if I'm driving, then it's all getting a bit dangerous. Then make a decision. But you don't have to make a decision before you have to make a decision. I think that everybody needs to be down with the program. What Shakespeare said, if you want to unite your country, take them to war. So when you're, that's a great thing for a band in a studio or wherever doing an interview. If you've been through 6 months of hell, there's an interesting chemistry between the guys in the band that's very attractive to people. There's that camaraderie and shorthand of of looks and words. That's great to see. Um, I think you need a visionary in the band and people who understand that want bits and pieces of that. You might just have people who want to play to more people. I like to play mid to large size venues, 800 to 1,000 people, because I know that when I hit my bass drum, somebody's getting punched in the chest with the low end from the 4 extra 18-inch cabinets on either side of the room. Poof. It makes me enjoy it more. Maybe my drum monitor is better than if I'm playing a small club. I like to play tiny clubs too, it's crazy. But everybody can have goals within the unit, but it needs to be an organized machine with one voice. And I don't just mean in terms of speaking, I mean in terms of action. Everybody needs to understand we've got to do 7 shows a week. And if somebody asks us to do an in-store on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon, we'll do that as well. And fans are a priority, and we'll stay at a venue till if people want us to sign something, we'll sign anything they want us to sign. We won't be in the vehicle and be aloof. This is who we are, and this is what we do. Boom. And I think that's really important. I've seen a 2-person road crew do unbelievable things, and I've seen a 7-person road crew achieve much less. And the reason for that was one of the 7 doesn't care, and everybody's working 120%, and you see the guy who's working at 60%, and then the next thing you know, everybody's working at 60%. It's an unbelievable phenomenon, and everybody in a band needs to be focused. And just doing dates is a great way to do that. On just a logistical, in a logistical sense, everybody needs to have a job where you can take off early on a Friday and get some slack on a Monday. So you can go and do a long weekend. If one person in the band has a job they can't leave till 8 o'clock on a Friday and they must be in at 6 o'clock on a Monday, that really limits your geographical scope. Lots of little things like that. You're making a commitment to everybody else in that vehicle. Well, I think that goes back to the idea of bands opening their eyes to the reality. In the film world, you know, Spielberg doesn't put out a film and go, "Here it is. What do you think?" He knows what people think because if everybody said, I don't want to trivialize. I'm trying to now. I can't think of the name of the movie, but if everybody said we don't like the end of Schindler's List, bad example because he wouldn't say, "Okay, how about a song?" or "Choose ending B," but that's the way Hollywood is, and Schindler's List is a bad example, but these endings are test marketed, and they look at the feedback and go, "Oh, okay, well, maybe we need to reshoot that and let people know. Here comes the villain, ooh, with the music, boom, boom, boom." I'm not saying that music needs to become that, but that instant feedback is available to bands when they play. It's available to them when the promoter's like, "I don't know if you can play on a Tuesday." Well, it's rough if you can't find a Tuesday night show. I think that some bands just hide behind the idea that it's just about their instrument, and it isn't. I told bands very early on, if your music is the most important thing in your life, then go and get some money. Because you might find yourself in a studio and someone like myself helping you produce, or just an engineer. And it's once the song is out of your head and you hear it back, that's when you realize it just needs piano, or you got the bits in the wrong place and now you can hear it. Of course, the outro should be the middle. But unless you have money for more studio time, your art is going to suffer. And unless you have money for instruments, your art is going to suffer. And that just seems really clear to me. So go out and get some money. Go and get. If you don't want to use your music to make money, then go and get hit by a car. But do something. Do something to get money, because you need money. And I think people then leap from this idea of monetizing their music to selling out. It's not selling out. If you can survive making your music, you're still around to act upon the new things you learn every day. And your music will get better. You'll grow as a person. And you might get to that point that you want to be. It's not selling out. It's being realistic and understanding the world. I think that I think most artists would want their music to move people. And opening up to a deeper communication is the way forwards. Now some artists that's the most difficult thing in the world. But I think there are ways to accomplish that. There's a site called funded.com where you can come up with a project and float it and see if people will fund it. If you are introverted, well, that's tough, but it's not uncommon for a genius artist to be very insulated. Well, then there are ways to bring people into that insulated world in a studio without direct communications. There are different ways to make that happen. People are more interested in the process as well as the finished item. But the process is what's intriguing to people. And it's not easy. But nothing, when has anything ever been easy? When has anything ever been easy? And I think it's correct and right with the universe that this path should be difficult. I think if something is just given to you, it's meaningless. If somebody just gave out studio time, people would just be, well, let's watch television, you know.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah, no pain, no gain. And a great example of that is Norway. I've been backwards and forwards to Norway. You can't imagine a more supportive society for the individual. You know, my wife was watching a documentary just like, what the? I have 4 kids. Well, if you have one kid in Norway, oh, ding dong, here's the person to help with the laundry provided by the government while this woman goes wandering around and does some shopping, and everybody's helping and everybody's part-time, socialised healthcare, and absolutely take 8 weeks off work for the baby, and and the government provides help. They'll pay you to practice your bass guitar. There were these containers all over, where was I? Christiansand, Oslo, outside of Oslo. And they're called rehearsal space in a minute or something. They're containers with a PA system and equipment in. And some of them just sit there. Because bands are like, oh no, there's another free instant rehearsal room. Oh God. And so I do a lecture in Norway. Nobody brings a demo. Nobody's doing anything. And I'm like, I said, I'm living in America and I live and work and teach there. But you guys are living in Disneyland. And they're like, what? And there's a saying in Norway that these kids have pillows sewn underneath their arms. And that's the translation of the phrase. If they fall, it doesn't matter because they fall onto feather pillows. And that, some of my most frightened, sweatiest, fear-ridden moments of creativity have been because, like, I've got 10 minutes. I'm a week past this deadline. I spent all the money I was given to do this soundtrack on buying the equipment to do the soundtrack, which just arrived. They're knocking at the door, and suddenly that adrenaline opens some pathways in the brain and fuels the creativity. And these guys aren't experiencing any of that. And nobody's doing anything. The money they're spending on subsidizing music, we should be having seminars saying it's not fair. There's Norwegians everywhere. They're better than us. They've got it together. They've got all the tools. Please, George Bush, don't let any more Norwegian musicians in the country because they've got all the advantages. But they're not, they just keep coming backwards and forwards to South by Southwest to try and pick up some more tips. And another 70 Norwegians come over. It doesn't help. So, yeah, the School of Hard Knocks, I think, is a good one. I like the idea of the beginning of Mission Impossible. You know, when it's like, all right, here's your mission. Blow up a bridge in Spain in the middle of winter. Okay. And then he sits and he looks at the explosive experts that speak Spanish. Yeah, we'll have this guy who climbed Mount Everest. We'll have that guy. You pick the team, and you can imagine the team of people that you'd like to have. Internet chops, meeting people, getting along good with the house sound guy. People skills, um, jumping up and down, boundless energy, vehicle maintenance. There's a skill set that would really help a band. And I think understanding that before you start on this mission is a good idea. You don't have to say, yeah, this bass player's crap, but he can maintain a vehicle. Maybe you have a band meeting, you choose the best bass player and say, are we all on the same page here? Which of us, we don't have anybody that knows anything about vehicle maintenance or merchandising. Who wants to help with that stuff? Who's going to take that on? And I have this strange situation sometimes when you'll have a band of 8 or 9 people calling the office of a small record label that might be 2 people. Why can you do this? We know all these things, doing. I'm like, well, there's 2 of us and there's 9 of you, you know. And if you just get out of these entrenched ideas of the label should be doing that, it doesn't matter who does it. Who can do what the best. And if everybody does what they can the best, and you see where there's a missing link and somebody tries to fill it, that could be great for the future. And you have to look at that whole picture, I think. This band last night, for instance, Uglyhead, they drove from Seattle to Portland to San Francisco to LA to San Diego to Phoenix. These are long drives, 3,000 miles to get to New Orleans. That's a long drive. There's an oil change right there. I hope I should have mentioned that to them last night. Have you changed your oil? I know it's only been 6 days, but that's 3,000 miles. More of a plan than no plan, I think, is good. The great thing about a band, whether it's a trio or 9 people, these are small entrepreneurial attack units. And you don't want to set a plan in stone because things change. Radiohead decide to give their music away, or different avenues open up. Amazon.com is doing a print-on-demand CD and booklet service for physical goods. Different things change, but some broad goals are good. We want to get to a point where we're playing 7 nights a week. How many years are we going to spend on this? What are the results of our first 4 months? What can we learn from that, and how can we move forward? And I think getting everybody on the same page is a good idea. Yeah.
If a band just gives a great show, will everything else take care of itself?
No. I mean, if you just think of what can go wrong with a show, was it advertised? Is there a street team? Great show, but the PA is appalling. It sounds bad. Someone was rude to the local sound guy. He doesn't care. He's mixing 360 bands a year, maybe 900 bands a year. He just forgets to plug in the effect. Nobody bothers to flash the lights. If you attract an audience, people raise their game. If there's 6 people in the audience and the band are treating everybody disrespectfully, then people will say, hey, I don't need to bother with this. I think both sides of the business fuel each other. I think if a band takes the time to deal with their own destiny and market themselves and get more people to a show, which it's not just positive marketing, it's deciding to play less in their local market, they'll have a better show. It's very, very tough to play to 10 people. Some bands react by abusing the 10 people who showed up. They're the people who showed up. Abuse the 200 people who didn't. So it's really hard to raise your game, to have all these questions in your head and still put on a good show to the 10 people. If you spend the effort ahead of time, it's much easier to have a good show. I think that in medieval times, the musicians were the bringers of news. Diddling, ding, 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 ding. Hey, the king's dead. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, blah, blah, and bands have that role, can have that role of uniting a scene in different parts of the country, and being less. I think bands have to be less precious, more precious and less precious about what they're doing. Here's the album. Here's the demos. Here's some of the live outtakes. Here's this. Here's that. Here's some more songs. And it's a marketing problem too, because as you find your first 100 fans, and look, 6 weeks' time you're going to go on another little tour and get some more fans, you have to keep the first 100 fans interested. So you need to always be creating something and keep people interested and keep communicating.
So you put out new stuff every day, every other day, as often as you can.
Something. I mean, it could just be, hey, here's some scribbles we did in the rehearsal room, and if you're doing stuff, things happen that might be interesting. Hey, this is what happened when we struck a deer, or look at the storm we were in. We're trapped here. Some content creates itself. If you're all sitting in a room trying to come up with content, it's harder. But if you're doing stuff, I went to China, and there's 80 hours of content. The there was no equipment in the studio. They brought a drum kit, but they didn't bring the cymbals. And but you know, content creates itself sometimes if you're looking for it. Yeah, it matters. It's a skill. You know, just I used to do spoken word performances. I thought, well, I'm on stage all the time. You know, I'd been on stage all my life. How difficult could it be? My knees were shaking the first time I did a spoken word performance. And somebody filmed it for me. Like, great, thanks a lot. And I watched myself, and it was like I was playing drums. And anyway, you know, it was ridiculous, so distracting. The next time I did it, I kept sending messages. You know, arms stop, and so I think it's good to watch a performance. And if a band takes 3 minutes, you know, between every song, if you're playing with 3 or 4 other bands, you have a half-hour window. That's 9 minutes that you're not playing. You could have played that other song. Maybe that was the song that people would have gone, I love that song. I hate the band. I didn't like any other song, but that one song, I'll go and see them again because I love that. They showed me another side of themselves. So you're not buying enough lottery tickets if you're spending 3 minutes in between the songs. It's rude. It's disrespectful. If you're on stage and there's 1,000 people and you're just staring them down, you're building the tension. That's theatre. But if you don't even know what you're doing or why, then you need to understand more about theatre and unveiling of a show and keeping people's interest. Well, that that's a special place. Um, you don't get to achieve it with 3 minute gaps in between the songs. There's there is an increasing tempo. You know, um, maybe you drop down to some moments and you create light and shade. And this is stagecraft takes years. So now we're not talking about are you good on your instrument? How good is the band together? Are you a marketing machine? Uh, you know, is your vehicle maintained? Because stagecraft doesn't come into it if you're broken down on the highway. You're not at the venue. Then it comes down to how does this machine function, the band machine, function as a unit, and who's doing what. And you see some of those bands where the bass player's going like this, and you think it's just a matter of time before the lead singer gets it in the head, but he never does because everybody knows where everybody is, and maybe they've experimented 600 or 700 times with let's drop it down to the song with a piano. Oh dear, that's a really horrible idea. You know, let's let's do the hit first. Oh dear, everybody left. You know, let's keep that tension building up to something, and how can we then manipulate that with maybe increasing the volume, increase the tempo, increase the volume, increase the intensity of the lights, boom, 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 and you take an audience on a journey. And you can't do that if you don't know the songs yourself or you're struggling just with your instrument. You can't be thinking about your instrument. You have to have that nailed because you're thinking about everybody else and how does your part in this feed the audience and everything else that's going on. I feel like I'm learning more all the time. And the more I learn, like when you said Ornette Coleman said music should be like a newspaper. One little learning box I have right now is the fact that I think a lot more can be learned from music history, that kind of music history, ideas and interesting thought, and an awareness of that than I previously thought. And that's been a slow path for me. into an area that I thought could be considered like what Beethoven. I don't need to know about Beethoven. I was in a band with Johnny Rotten, but there are revolutionary ideas that have been true throughout history that interest me. So I'd like to say that I want to remain and maybe grow more open to discovering those ideas that could end up being very exciting and new, even though they're 20 years old. I think that there is a need for a different kind of skill set and awareness, um, and I'd like to be in the middle of ringing that bell and succeeding at what the Norwegian government has failed at, you know, and have people go, oh, it's another band. They must have been involved in that program. They're just, how can we get involved in that? Um, uh, there's an idea for me. I played to 12,000 people, and I did American Bandstand and all kinds of stuff. But when I'm teaching, and you see somebody light up, you know, that's that's huge, and um, and I love that. I want more of that. So I'm on an interesting journey, and I hope it stays interesting,
Well,
and I hope I stay open to stuff. I haven't become closed at all, which I think is I'm very happy about that.